that was good. Everybody fell silent as I came up here. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first Intelligent Transport Systems UK annual conference. This morning we've got a very full, in fact today we've got a very full and frankly challenging agenda to get through. Max will have his work cut out to keep us on time. Those of you who know me, I'm very pleased to say that we've got all transport modes represented together today. As you will know, I am absolutely obsessed with multimodal transport, and that's the way to go. And I'm very pleased to say that we've managed to get everybody a genuinely integrated transport conference today. So I'm very pleased that the agenda represents that. We've got four key themes today: connectivity and automation, integration, sustainability, and industry growth. You'll recognise those as being the key themes set out in our Future of ITS UK review. That was my first task, along with our president, Steve Norris, who's also in the audience today, when I took on the role of chair of ITS UK. And it really represents the way that we want to take the organisation in the future, driving both the sphere of influence and the membership, because we are a member organisation, and it's really key to my mind that we represent the membership, but also that we stand up and be counted as an organisation. I'm not going to say much more than that just now, but before I pass over to Max to run the rest of the day, I do need to thank Amazon Web Services for supporting the event, and also our partner Interchange. I'd also like to thank the board, the council, and the members for supporting it, and I'm very pleased to see the number of people actually in this room now. I think we've got a bigger audience in the keynote address, which I'll make a note of. So I'll now hand over to Max. I say we've got a really busy day today, so we'll try and keep to time. Speakers, if I start shouting at you or Max starts shouting at you, it's for the greater good. It's not personal insult. Hand over to Max now.
Thank you very much, Stuart. And welcome everyone. That's working. Oh, we have oh no, that's. There we go. Okay. Welcome everyone to the ITS UK annual conference. First of all, I just want to say a big thank you to Amazon Web Services for supporting today. We couldn't put this on without you, and also our partners Interchange. I'm sure you've all noticed that we've done this in collaboration with them as part of the two-day show taking place, and it's been really great collaboration and great to do it together with them. Before the conference begins, I just wanted to take the opportunity, and I think it'd be remiss of me not to talk a bit about the changes we've made at ITS UK over the past year, and what we're ultimately looking to do and our new kind of purpose. Fundamentally, we exist to be the voice of the UK transport technology industry and to work on behalf of you as members in the sector. And really, we want to see a thriving intelligent transport sector across all modes, as Stuart has said, and all parts of the UK. How are we doing that? Well, we've focused, we've got a laser-like focus on four key pillars, which I quickly want to run through and talk about what we've been doing through our work over the past year on that. The first one is making connections and sharing intelligence. Ultimately, we're here for our 160 members, and we're here to provide a place for you to meet one another, to build new connections, to understand what's going on in the sector, and ultimately to find solutions to different problems in the industry. So over the last year, we've revamped how we provide information to you. We've launched a new members area. We've revamped our forum program and are now delivering nearly 50 events last year. And we're providing briefings on the latest developments across the industry. And just last week, we launched a new market development service, where we have a new tender monitoring platform where you can see the latest tenders. And we're launching Bid Support Tuesdays, which is on the third Tuesday of every month, you can meet with our 2 resident bidding experts to ask them any questions about how to make your bids as effective as possible. Ultimately, those are there to help you succeed in the sector. And if you're interested in the first Bid Support Tuesday, it's on the 19th of March online. All the details are on our website. Influencing policy and representing the industry. We are aiming to represent you as the voice of the sector and ultimately have your concerns and raise any policy issues with key decision makers at the highest levels. So over the last year, we've met with the Transport Innovation Minister, actually 2 Transport Innovation Ministers, because we've had 2, special advisors, the Shadow Transport Secretary, the Shadow Roads Minister, the Lib Dem Transport Team, the Exports Minister, and many more, quite a few MP meetings too. I get asked why are we doing this, and fundamentally, I think some of the biggest challenges in terms of rolling out transport technology are not actually in the technology, but in the policy environment itself and the regulatory environment. And I'll take 2 examples. The first is the work we've done on the Home Office type approval, working with enforcement manufacturers to raise the issue that the process for approvals was not helping innovation in the sector. And the second was our current campaign that we've launched on the VAT around demand-responsive transport and the impact that's having in terms of cost for demand-responsive transport. There's a lot of other issues I can mention. You'll hear some of them today in terms of the role of data and AI, how we make MAS work across the UK in a strategic way and integrate our transport through smart ticketing, what we do about the £35 billion black hole in road taxes coming up, and the move to mobility pricing, and also treating the sector as an important industry in its own right and as a key export. But what I would say is, with a general election coming up, these issues are more important than ever, and a bit of a plug that we'll be developing a future transport manifesto, and if you're interested in that, come and see us, and we're happy to talk about it. Promoting the sector overseas, we're doing a lot more. We launched our ITS export study in partnership with TTF last year. It highlighted 5 key sectors of importance to you, the members. Those were America, Australia, Germany, the Netherlands, and France. And we're doing stuff in all of those markets this year. So we're looking to go to Intertraffic. We're taking a delegation of 7 members out to Intertraffic. We're going to the ITS Congress in Dubai, but we're also looking to do stuff in the US and Australia around the Australian Global Summit, for example. And of course, you'll hear about the ITS World Congress in Birmingham, which we're working with our partners, TFWM and DFT, on as well. And last but not least, celebrating the sector. Last year, we had the biggest President's Dinner that we'd had ever, and we're going to make it even bigger this year. There'll be more details on that to follow. But ultimately, we're here about celebrating your work, so share your news with us. We've got a fantastic early careers group, a fantastic women in ITS group who are doing some brilliant things in the sector. And we're also doing things like our early careers essay competition, which has had more entries this year than ever before too. So there's a huge amount of work to do to celebrate you guys and promote what you're doing. So there's a huge amount more that I could cover, but I know you want to get into the conference. What I would say is, if you're interested in this, if you're not a member, come and see us, and we can give you some information on how to get involved. If you are a member and want to get involved in some of the activities I mentioned, again, come and say hello. There's Priscilla and Rukshan in the room here, and we're also in L4 down in the exhibition hall. Thank you very much for joining the conference today. I hope you have a fantastic and find today insightful. Again, thank you to AWS and Interchange, our partners, and I'll pass back to Stuart. Thank you very much.
We had hoped to have an address by Anthony Brown, the Transport Innovation Minister. Max, Steve and I met him just before Christmas, and he's really, really interested in our field of work. Unfortunately, he can't be with us today, but he has instead sent us a short recorded message. So let's hear from the Minister.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to open today's event. I'm sorry I can't be with you in Manchester, where I know you'll all be sharing ideas and possibilities for the future of transport. That's a future in which ITS UK and its members will play a really important part. Not only in developing systems and services and advocating for new technologies, but also offering the expertise and experience that we'll need to meet the challenges of tomorrow. I'm grateful for your engagement with government. It was great to get round the table with ITS UK back in December to discuss our shared ambitions and how we can work together to achieve them. Now, AI will be central to that. It has the potential to improve travel experiences through smoother journey planning, closer integration between modes, and improved screening at ports and airports. My department's forthcoming Transport AI strategy will set out how we will seize those opportunities, with responsible innovations that will deliver cheaper, cleaner and quicker journeys for all. We'll also lay plans for increased research, development and deployment, both within the department and across the wider sector. This all builds on the work of the National AI Strategy in shaping the UK into a hotbed of innovation. We're already making excellent progress. Our investment in developing the National Parking Platform will revolutionise how we find and pay for parking. And our plan for drivers committed to investing £70 million in maintaining and upgrading traffic signals, introducing the next generation of AI control systems. Projects to digitise traffic control data will prepare our networks for automated vehicles, technology which could be on our streets far sooner than you think. The Automated Vehicles Bill will make its way into the House of Commons for second reading in the coming weeks, outlining the rigorous safety framework, clear liability structure and regulatory environment that we need to kickstart a revolution on our roads, a new era for transport that will be cleaner and greener than before. The transition to zero-emission vehicles will help us meet our climate commitments, supporting high-quality jobs and economic growth in communities across the country. That's why the government has spent over £2 billion to encourage uptake, including offsetting higher upfront costs and accelerating the rollout of charge point infrastructure. Our ZEV mandate requires 80% of new cars and 70% of new vans sold in Great Britain to be zero-emission by 2030, putting us on a pathway to 100% zero-emission by 2035. It's the most ambitious regulatory framework of its kind and will bring the certainty investors and consumers need, transforming the way we travel. Seismic shifts are not achieved in silos. Government needs you, the industry, to keep rising to the challenge. And we'll keep listening to your questions, concerns and challenges as we shape a transport network fit for the future. So thank you for bringing your expertise to today's event and taking part in what I'm sure will be a lively, productive discussion. I look forward to working with you to put your plans into action and to deliver on our ambitions together.
The one thing I like about talking, well, one of the things I like about talking to politicians is they counteract that dour Scots engineer in me and remind me, actually, we really are very, very good at what we do, and we are world leading. Just keep that thought in the back of your mind as we go into our first session. If I could ask the panellists to join me up on the stage, please. So our first session is an introduction to Expo, World Congress 2027 in Birmingham. We've got a series of presentations by John, Mark and Darren. So they'll give individual presentations, and if they stick to time, we will then be able to have a quick question and answer session afterwards. So first of all, ask John to present on what is Expo.
Right, hello. So I've got lots of slides. I'm not going to present them all. That's the first thing, because I've been told off not too many slides. What I wanted to do was set the scene, really. What is an ITS World Congress? And actually I'm going to ask a question to start, see if you're all awake. Who has been to an ITS World Congress? Oh, that's not bad. I'm hoping either by this year or by 2027, most of you put your hands up. But I want to start with explaining who we are. So we are Ertico. We are ITS Association for Europe, Middle East and Africa. Like ITS UK, we are a membership organisation. We have members from the private sector, public sector. Some of the people in ITS UK are in ITS Europe. And I think one of the things to think about with the ITS World Congress is probably a bit like the Olympics. That the host city hosts it, and the host government, but it's actually run by us as Ertico. I wanted to then sort of focus on as I said, I'll send these slides to Max and he can send them out, so please don't feel you have to read them all now. But I want to give you an idea of the scale of the World Congress and why we think it's really important and why it will be really important in Birmingham in 2027. I think it's a unique event. It has a huge scale, so we're expecting 20,000 people in Dubai. It's a mixture of congress, exhibition, technical visits and demonstrators. And one thing that I find really fascinating about the Congress is you talk to different people and different people have different experiences. Some will spend all their time in exhibitions, some people spend time in demonstrations, some people will just do seminars. I think, linking to what Stuart said actually, we do a lot of amazing stuff, and one of the things in ITS in general, and the World Congress is a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity to promote beyond Europe. And this is these percentages you might not be able to read very well, but I think the key point is that only 22% of attendees are from Europe, so we expect for Dubai. So this actually is a great event. The congresses are a huge opportunity to promote beyond the people we normally talk to. And I think this is also another slide that I will send so you can read in detail, but it shows the split. And I think one of the things I want to highlight is this end, that we attract a lot of senior leaders, so chief engineers, chief executives, people from the C-suite, so these are people that make decisions both in the public and the private sector. So like all these events, what you get out of it is what you put in, but actually there's a huge opportunity. I'm just going to skip just quickly to this topic, just to give you a feel for this year. These are the topics we're going to be covering. It's the kind of things you'd expect: urban mobility, innovation, clean mobility, autonomy. Okay, I'm just going to stop there, I think, because I don't want to waste too much time. But I will quickly run through if you want to take a photo. If you want to know any more about the Congress, let me know, but these are our Congress leads.
Great, thank you very much. We'll hand seamlessly over to Mark now. And actually, no danger of staying on time.
Thanks, John. I don't know how many slides you've got. I'm going to flick through. Okay, there we go. That's brilliant. So, yeah, Mark Collins. I'm here representing the West Midlands, but I suppose one of the things we wanted to say part of this is that although we're hosting in the West Midlands in Birmingham, it really is a sort of UK event. We really want to sort of make the UK proud with doing this. So those that aren't too familiar with where the West Midlands is, it's here. And for us as Transport for West Midlands, we are the sort of regulatory body that help coordinate putting the bid together. We do lots of things in the region. It's a region of about 3 million people. Again, we're really keen to sort of represent those individuals as part of this event, as well as all the sort of the businesses, etc., that are resident in this region. Again, just reiterating that point, that this is a sort of really a joint effort between ourselves, Department for International Trade, ITS UK, Visit Britain, etc., and Urtico to try and pull this event together. It's going to be a mission that started already, and it's going to be held at NEC. And the dates are here, because I don't think, John, you included the dates, but that's a date for your diary. So end of October 2027, and it's held in and around the NEC, for those that have been before, a really significant site. I think it's taken up 4 of the 5 halls in the main sort of area, so a really significant volume of space we're using as well. And the idea is that we're trying to sort of sell the best of the UK, so we want to be doing visits that are in and around the UK as well. So we're looking for events and things that we can take delegates to. So there's a creative list that's ongoing of things that we can do outside of the event to really sell what's going on in the region and beyond. And then really just a bit of a call out here of ways to get involved. So we've got, as I say, Urtico and ourselves with other departments in government that are part of this sort of host organising committee. But really we've got these advisory groups that are going to sit underneath that, and we're really sort of putting a call out there for people to get involved in these. So there's a sort of national advisory group where we're sort of looking for, say, businesses and individuals to try and help us pull together a program of work, and that also is then separated out into a technical and demonstration advisory group. So any ideas about how we could and what we could demonstrate as part of that event is, again, we're really looking for volunteers to be part of that. And no doubt Urtico and others will be looking to help build a sort of sponsorship portfolio as well. And clearly, this is a big event that we're looking for sponsors to try and pull together. So this is really where we're looking for a level of engagement from people in this room. And as I said, underneath, TFWM, our Transport for West Midlands, are seeking to help support all of those. John covered this a little bit already, but there's sort of ways and themes that we're looking at. So connected autonomy, clearly part of that. Clean, eco-mobility, again, another key theme that we want, urban mobility, and then transport and logistics. And we're also, as part of this, really keen to understand how we reflect how autonomy works for people as well. So how have these themes actually impacting the world at large, and how can we sort of tell that story through this? We really want to make that as a sort of clear theme within the Congress. And I think last slide, which has got too many words on it, but again, these are the slides that should be sent out, but this is just an initial view on what's involved, what we think are the key themes, what we think are the key technologies that we want to talk about at Congress. So again, up for debate, but we're really, really keen to get some input on this, and yeah, hope to see you there.
Thanks, Mark. Darren, you take the stage, please.
Thank you. Are you okay? So, good news is from me, no slides. Bad news is that means you've got to look at me for 5 minutes. So, I'm really pleased to be on the stage here, and I'm really pleased that after a lot of years of trying, we're now here talking about the fact that World Congress will be coming to Birmingham. That's fantastic news. That's a great thing to be happening. And as John said, this is a bit like the Olympics. It's been hosted in the West Midlands, but it's a national event, and that's why government, through the Department for Transport and the Department for International Trade, that's why we're very keenly involved in this and actually part funding it, because this is it's a once-in-a-generational opportunity to show the world how good we are. Now, those of you that go to World Congresses may know that the format. The World Congress happens every year. The world is divided into three sectors: Europe, Middle East and Africa, the Americas and the Far East. And we each get a chance to organise a World Congress. So it travels around the world. Each region gets 1 in 3 chances. That means individual countries within each region don't get to do this very often. The last time we did a World Congress was about 25 years ago. The last time we did a European Congress, which is obviously the smaller European version, was about 12 years ago. This is a chance to really shine. This is a chance to really show what the UK can do. And to build on the words of the Minister earlier, this is the chance to show all the wonderful things that we are doing. And I know we're all quite dour about these things, and we all get wound up about the difficulties in making XML schemas talk to each other. But standing back and looking at the big picture, there's an awful lot going on in the UK, and there's an awful lot going on, particularly in the West Midlands, that we really, really should be showing. So my message today really is that we really want the sector to get behind this. And I think there's a few things we can do around that. There are committees, and there will be ongoing work that you can join, and I absolutely ask you to do that, because that's how we will shape the event that we want. There are the World Congresses between now and 27. There's one in Dubai this year. Now, in the same way that Australia gets to be in the European Song Contest, Dubai is actually part of Europe for the purpose of the World Congress. So Dubai is a European World Congress. We are taking a big delegation out there. We're planning a big UK pavilion. We tried a slightly different way of having the UK at events last year at the Portugal European Congress, and through government, we led it through the Transport Technology Forum, which gave us access to different ways of running events and organising things and getting ITS UK and others involved in what we do. And it worked really well. It was a really smooth operation, and we projected a really good image of the UK. So we will be building on that for Dubai. We're building on that same model. There's an opportunity for SMEs to come out with us, and we'd absolutely want you to do that. But that's really our chance. That's the last kind of European event before it goes off to South Korea and then America. That's our last chance to say, everybody around the world, get 2027 in your diaries, because it's going to be a great event, and we want as many of you as possible there. So again, any of you that are thinking about it, please go out to Dubai. Please get involved with us in the UK government. Please be part of the UK Pavilion. Be part of some of the outreach and some of the activities we'll be doing with the embassy and the ambassador staff in Dubai. Come along and help us. Help us support European Congresses over the coming years. Help us support future World Congresses, because that all builds to us putting on an excellent event in 2027. And that's really it from me, from government. It's just really to say, we all know how good we are. We all know the great things that happen in this country. This is our chance to show the world how good we are. So let's grasp it and make the best of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Well, we do have a few minutes for questions, so if anyone would like to ask a question, just raise your hand, please. One thing I would say is, don't give me a long introduction to the question, just ask the question. Okay. To what extent do you think UAVs, urban air,
I don't see why they wouldn't. And certainly the Congress back in 2020, whenever it was in Singapore, did feature quite heavily UAV, and it was very popular. I don't see why that wouldn't feature again. But I think the point really here is that it's about doing stuff that the UK does well that we want to showcase. If it happens that's something we're doing well, then we should absolutely showcase it.
If I quickly add to that, I think within Ertico, we are starting this year to start looking at urban air mobility. We appreciate it's a emerging area, and I think for us as Ertico, we're trying to be mode agnostic. ITS works in different modes. We will be looking at a platform this year on urban air mobility, so I think it will be, particularly by 2027, I think it will be a core discussion as part of the Congress.
Yeah, certainly from the ITS UK point of view, I would support that. It's an area that we're not heavily involved in at the moment, but it is key to our future strategy. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We were invited to get involved, to participate in the working groups that were mentioned. How does one go about doing that?
Mark?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure what the answer for at this point. So I think that specific question, I'll hang around for that, and I can give you details. So if there's anyone else, I'm happy to sort of give details, and we can coordinate that way. But there will be a more pronounced mechanism that will sort of distribute, I think, in due course.
That kind of leads into a question I actually had, just in case nobody else answered one. Is there a kind of program of key activities or dates, or by this date you should have signalled your interest in it, or is that still being developed?
Still being developed, I think. Yeah. So it will be between now and sort of Dubai. We'll have that sort of all coordinated. So we're close. We've not actually signed the contract yet with Ertico. So there's a little bit of pressure on getting that sorted, and I think that's really sort of the kickstart piece to sort of kick on the program.
So I come in a bit on that. So a lot of the background planning for the Congress obviously sort of starts as soon as the contract is signed. I think one of the things I would say is if you want to do something different, you've got a really good idea for the Congress, come and talk to us, either Mark or me, because actually the earlier we think about it, the better. A lot of the committees will be formed probably a year, 2 years beforehand. Obviously, generally what happens is once the previous year's World Congress has finished, that the next one starts. However, we are finding that actually, because of the way the market's working and people making decisions earlier, we will probably be starting at least 18 months out thinking about the key opportunities. So what I suggest is, if you're interested in any of the congresses, and the European or world, and wherever they are, make yourself known early and have those conversations, because the last thing you want to do is wait to the end and find the opportunity's gone.
Thanks. Any further questions? It sounds like you two need to find a quiet room, and I'll lend you a pen if you need that to sign the contract. Okay, well, that's fine. I think that concludes session 1, or our keynote session. We'll now kick off on the first of the workshops. Ryan is going to lead that. So if you'd just thank our panel, please, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Good afternoon, maybe, just about. And welcome to this session on connectivity and autonomy. For those that don't know me, I've met many of you before. I'm Ryan Hood, Digital Highways Leader at Arup. I'm a director, a volunteer position of ITS UK, and I will chair the session. Over the next hour, we're going to hear from the Government Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles on delivering a vision for CAV for the UK, and then we're going to move swiftly into a panel discussion on how best to utilise the power of data and AI to improve transport outcomes. We were to have Simon Connick, head of CCAV, with us today. Unfortunately, he's had a family emergency, so I believe we've got Dominic Leeson, who is Head of International and Insurance at the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles. Welcome, Dominic. In terms of questions, if you could, we should have time for questions, I believe. If you'd like to think about those questions as Dominic presents, I would like you to state your name and organisation and then briefly your question. Thanks. Over to you, Dominic.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here and inviting CCAP to be a part of your day. My boss apologises for not being here due to family emergency, but I like to think I'm more than capable to do the presentation as well. So I'm one of the deputy heads at CCAB, and as mentioned, I head up the international insurance team, but previously I was the policy coordinator for the autonomous vehicles bill, and talking about how we feel about delivering a car future. Very much the focus of the centre at the moment is the autonomous vehicles bill, and then also thinking about how we're going to implement what's in the bill once we've received royal assent. But taking a step back, what is the Department for Transport's reason in being interested in self-driving vehicles? We want to improve safety on UK roads, so we want safer roads. We want to improve access to transport, especially in rural areas and those with accessibility needs. And also we want to continue to increase UK productivity and economic growth, and we do feel that self-driving vehicles can be a key player in that. So why now? The technology is moving quickly, and we want to be a leader in the world on being able to demonstrate how you can regulate future technologies and technologies that have AI application or learning applications. And we also really see the importance linked with our kind of global efforts to work towards a net zero, combat the effects of climate change in introducing more efficient transport networks. So the foundations of the work, a bit of a background, some of you may know this already. The Law Commission published its joint report in 2022, which recommended to the UK government that we need a new legislation in order to allow self-driving vehicles to be deployed safely on our roads. They did 4 years of work, consultations, dealing with the public and organisation, lots of responses, and set out 75 recommendations, which we in the government kind of accepted in our CAM 2025 paper, which was published in August 2022. And legislation has always been called for by industry itself, stakeholder groups, and the Transport Select Committee in the UK Parliament. We finally got it after 2-3 years of internal battles, as it can be between departments. We finally got that slot, and the bill started in the House of Lords, which is not common, but we actually thought that was more of a positive thing for us, because we could really get into the detail, the contents of the bill. And as the Minister mentioned in his video, we got second reading, which is starting next week, and we do expect to go to committee stage, where there'll be much more detailed scrutiny of the clauses in the bill to happen the week after. So it's progressing very quickly through Parliament, which is great for us, because we want to really get this bill through and get royal assent and start actually working on the actual regulations that will inform the body of the regulatory framework. For those of you, in case you don't know, we've got 4 key parts of the bill. It's about liability, safety, marketing, and licensing of passenger service. I'll quickly go through each section. I'm conscious, I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions, so please do hurry me up if I'm taking too long. Liability. This was a key part of the bill, is we are introducing new legal entities, which we are calling the authorised self-driving entity and user in charge. So at the moment, anytime you've got a vehicle, you're driving a vehicle, the behaviour of the vehicle is the responsibility of the driver. But when it's a self-driving vehicle, if you are a private citizen who owns a vehicle that can drive itself, when it's driving itself, that responsibility then goes to what we're now calling authorised self-driving entity, which will either be the car manufacturer or the the software company who developed the technology. They will be responsible for the behavior of a car, and then the private-owned individual will then only be responsible for keeping the vehicle roadworthy and responding to transitional demands. We also have new concepts of no user in charge and no user in charge operator. So if you have a vehicle that's part of a fleet, let's say it's a bus or a truck or lorry, the operator is basically the company who owns the vehicle as part of a fleet. They become the operator, and they will have the responsibility of keeping the vehicle roadworthy and managing breakdowns and incidents if they are running services. Previously what would have been the driver, it just becomes a user in charge or a passenger in that instance. The whole concept here is really trying to give individuals the confidence that if they buy this vehicle, such technology, that they're not going to be liable if something goes wrong. Safety is the key thing. The bill has been written in such a way that we want self-driving vehicles to be able to drive on the UK roads as they are now. We're not expecting any changes to infrastructure. We're not asking for that. We want the vehicles to demonstrate that they can drive safely on our road. But how do we know a vehicle is safe? So what is safe enough? And we have consulted on our view of what is safe enough. The government position is that we want self-driving vehicles to drive as though it was being driven by a safe and competent human driver. Now, a lot of people ask, well, how do you measure that? Well, the point is, lots of people think they are good drivers, and they're not. And I'm someone who's actually currently learning to drive, and I notice lots of people don't follow the rules of the road. The technology will have to abide by the highway code and by the rules of the road, which is what a safe and competent driver should do. And as a result of that there should be less, there will be less incidents on the road. We will have a statement of safety principles that we will have to lay before Parliament by the Secretary of State, which will be setting out exactly what a vehicle needs to demonstrate to the Vehicle Certification Authority in order to be authorized to have a self-driving feature on our roads. So a vehicle that normally now goes for type approval will have an extra layer authorization where we'll be testing out the system, and they will only be allowed to enable that feature provided it has passed all the safety tests that we will be putting forward. We will also have operating licensing requirements for those who want to do operate fleet services. We're going to have an in-use regulation process whereby we will be learning as we go on. Because the technology is new and is developing, we are going to be ensuring that our regulations can learn and adapt as time and technology improves. And we also will be introducing an incident investigation capability within the department, which will be looking at incidents that do occur with a vehicle that's driving itself, but with very much a no-blame investigation, just to try and understand what happened and to ensure that our safety loop is working accurately. Marketing. I always like to use the example of Tesla. They say they have self-driving vehicles. They won't be able to say that in UK roads after this bill, because only a vehicle that has been authorized for self-driving can be marketed as self-driving. We want to make a clear distinction between self-driving and advanced assistant driving systems to ensure that those who buy vehicles fully understand what their vehicles are capable of doing and what their legal responsibilities are. And we really feel that making sure that the marketing is clear is not only for the safety, but it's also to support the industry in order to grow, because the last thing you want is one vehicle claimed to be self-driving, causes a massive crash, and then no one had confidence in the technology going forward. And finally, permits for self-driving passenger vehicles. We are going to be introducing a new permit regime, which is separate to existing permit regimes for taxis and buses. and any other passenger services. There will be requirements on what the passenger services will need to provide, but in practice, it's all about ensuring that there is good accessibility for those who have accessibility needs. That was something that was very clear in the House of Lords, that members of Parliament really want to ensure that technology can be used to the benefit of those who have accessibility needs. And obviously, we will need to work with local authorities in making sure that local authorities understand what this new permitting regime will look like, and that can work effectively in practice, because the last thing we don't want is finding out that passenger services are struggling to roll out the technology because local authorities do not feel that they fully understand what this technology can and can't do. So that's kind of the bill in a nutshell. I hope that was a useful run through, and I'm sure I'll answer any questions, well, I will answer any questions that you may have. But yeah, that's all for me for now.
Dominic, do you want to come take a seat here?
Sure.
So we've got time, we've got 10 minutes for questions. I think I'll just kick off with two very quick ones to allow time to come from the questions to come from the audience. I think I heard you say there is no infrastructure requirements, whether digital or physical, required. Can you just say a little more about that? Because I know we've got a whole audience here that's geared around providing infrastructure and support for mobility.
So what I meant by that is we've drafted the bill that if a self-driving vehicle is ready and has met our safety requirements, it should be able to drive on our UK roads under its current infrastructure. That does not mean that we're not expecting infrastructure to change going forward. The bill has been drafted and so far to basically whatever the infrastructure picture is at that moment in time, the vehicle needs to demonstrate I can drive safely on the road as it is now. We know that infrastructure changes will happen going forward, and the whole part of our future regulations will be drafted in a way that when we have new challenges, new infrastructure needs, that will be incorporated in the authorization procedure.
Kind of building on that a touch, and rewinding back 1 or 2 years, there was a lot of focus on trying to, with current trials, with trying to take the safety engineer out of the vehicle, which led to lots of discussions around telemonitoring, and then trying to take the safety driver out of the vehicle, which led to a lot of discussions around teleoperation, and then actually the emergence of some purely teleoperated business models driving around London. Is there any, in the bill, does it talk around this concept of telemonitoring and teleoperation?
So, firstly, on the safety driver perspective, removing the safety driver, we know that currently a bit of a grey area, an illegal grey area, and that is why we have not seen trials that have removed the safety driver. So, alongside the bill, we are working with industry to kind of nitpick what would give the industry the confidence to remove a safety driver and run those trials, because those trials are very important for us and having the evidence going forward as to what we need to have in our safety regulatory framework. On the what we call remote driving, this bill does not deal with remote driving. The Law Commission produced an advice paper, and we're studying the recommendations that the Law Commission provided. The challenge for us there is more the that's where the infrastructure challenges come in, about if something is fully remotely driven, connectivity, and all those issues. So we're taking a two-step, but we really needed to get something through first. So we really want to focus on getting the bill for automated vehicles, and then we will be continuing to look at how we can enhance those kind of technologies going forward. But this is probably the first step.
Thanks, Dominic. Got a question here?
Hi, yeah, great to see the bill going through, big supporter. Real concern, though, is that you talk safety and never mention cybersecurity. It's not on there, it's not in the bill document itself. There's a lot of us who are very keen to support this bill through, so I would urge you to reach out to those of us who are doing this right now, particularly through the CCAV programs, to bring us on board and help us help you get this through, because there are people in both houses who have serious concerns about cybersecurity in this space, and it's not there. I know it's a framework, but it's not there, and it should be front and center, because everything digital can be attacked.
No, I totally appreciate your comment. We do have a cyber lead in our policy unit, and you're right, there's been questions in House of Lords, and we know we came up in House of Commons about how do we ensure the technology is safe from cyber attacks. I can't really say much more on that, but I'll take that away to my colleagues about making sure that those who are working are being very clear with the industry about the work we are doing, because there's definitely work going on there. But no, we are very aware of that threat.
Got a question here?
Hi, can I ask a bit about end users? Are you still expecting people to have driving licenses to operate one of these things, or could, say, a 12-year-old jump into one, punch in the destination, and off they go?
So at the moment, you would have to have a UK driving license. You have to have you would have to be an adult to buy the car. So a 12-year-old wouldn't be able to buy the car. If a parent decides to put their child in, and the child starts playing with the system, well, then the vehicle should still be driving itself safely. Provided that the individual doesn't tamper with the technology itself and the vehicle will drive itself safely, and the vehicle will go from A to B. Whether that's where the parent wanted that child to go, that will be between the parent and the child, I think. It's hard to, we can't regulate to that depth. But at the moment, in terms of driving licenses, you will, if you have a vehicle which also can drive manually, so it's just a feature you put on that drives itself, you will need to have a driving license to drive it when it's not self-driving. And also, there may be certain areas and certain environments where people may not feel like they want to be driving the vehicle themselves, for the vehicle to be driving itself. So you will still have to have a driving license.
But just to be clear, I guess in the case where it's fleet operated,
yeah,
you don't need a driving license, right?
Yeah.
Great. Question at the back.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Chris Cowan here. I just wondered, are you envisaging any changes to vehicle maintenance procedures, or any guidance likely to come out in that area?
So, so there was I definitely remember there was a question in the Transport Committee when our minister, or previous minister, was attending, and there was a lot of MOTs. What will happen with the MOT process and so on? Vehicles already have a lot of technology in them. A lot of the driving assistance systems are being built in. Our expectations will be that if a camera or a sensor is not working on the vehicle, and that the vehicle should recognize that it's not got all its cameras available, then it will go, I can't drive myself. You have to then take me, or the vehicle needs to be sorted out. It would be then for the mechanical industry to upskill its staff in order to be able to identify how to deal with those technologies. But our minimum requirement will be, if all your cameras are not working, or if there's one camera that's not working, then the vehicle should notify the user in charge that it's got a broken camera, and then that there will be the responsibility of the owner of the vehicle, if it's a privately owned vehicle, or the operator, to then fix that problem with a mechanic.
Hi, will you be bringing regulation to do with the ethical question of prioritising safety of different types of road users, different ages of people, these kind of things that could be quite challenging?
Sorry,
so prioritising the safety of different road users, a cyclist versus the person in the car versus a pedestrian.
Well, so we envisage that the technology has to, we were expecting the technology to be able to identify all sorts of different scenarios and react to them in a safe way. That will be part of a kind of authorization process. So when a vehicle is being tested to be authorized, we will be throwing scenarios at it, such as, the cyclist too close, an elderly person does it recognise a child, and so forth. So that should all be embedded within that will be embedded within the authorisation process to ensure that the vehicle can demonstrate it can drive safely.
Got one last question, and then I've got one to finish.
Sure.
Oh, thank you. Right. Yeah, Mike Soper. I work for National Highways, and one of my things, really following up from the previous question, is once we get into that authorisation process, that's where we then we in the public sector then own that process, don't we? We have to have a extremely rigorous testing regime, you know, and for us it's all those questions about, do these vehicles work in all circumstance? That's all circumstance in weather conditions, all circumstance in traffic conditions. So I guess moving forward, it's just how that process then works in terms of the consultation engagement around setting up that process for testing, because there's going to be a sort of push and pull, isn't there, from a company wanting to get their vehicle authorised versus you know, us in the public sector wanting to make sure that vehicle is as rigorously tested as possible, and it works on motorways as well as it does on green country lanes, you know, given what you said earlier about these vehicles supporting rural communities as well. So it's the setup around that authorisation process is going to be absolutely vital, isn't it?
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely, you're definitely right. In terms of what's, you know, kind of our next steps, obviously, like I say, we'll focus on getting the bill through Parliament, but we're already starting to plan on how we're going to consult on all the different, you know, regulatory secondary instruments we're going to have to put through. It's going to be quite a lot of them. It's going to take time, and we want to work with industry to understand how much data they can share with us, how quickly, how do we interpret the data. Insurance companies want access to certain types of data, so we need to get them on board in order for them to feel confident they can insure vehicles which have this technology, and making sure that that relationship is working. So this, while you know, everyone in the industry welcomes the bills come through, this is only the first step. The next step's even bigger, and it's going to take a bit of time, if I'm going to be, you know, completely honest. So we have obviously committed to doing this as quickly as we can, but really we want to get this right. And if we get it wrong in the first instance, it will really be a blow to the industry. So we're definitely going to be setting up consultation, working with parliamentarians, working with you know, safety groups as well, road safety groups, to really ensure that people are happy with our authorisation procedure.
Just to conclude, I'm conscious the focus today has been on the AV bill. It's not the only thing that CCAV are doing. If we fast forward 1 year from today, you'll be towards the end of your CAM strategy, 2023 to 2025. Yeah. Where do you think we'll be in a year's time?
In a year's time, I think in a year's time we'll be starting to understand how the regulatory process will be working, and then we'll be working with the industry in order to see how we can continue to help it grow. And also, more importantly, and it's something that's very key, is how we get the public really confident in the technology. We've had some really great social researchers who've done some work in both rural and urban and small town areas to really understand how we can get people on board. Because a lot of people, my parents included, who just can't see this technology working in practical reality. But once we actually got them in a vehicle, self-driving vehicle, after 5 minutes, all their concerns were relayed. We even use EEGs to measure their kind of brain waves, and the nervousness literally went down after 30 seconds, because people were like, oh, this is actually really boring. I'm just sitting in a car doing nothing. But that is key in order to get the public on board and getting them really invested in this being a real kind of safe future for all road users.
Thank you, Dominic. A round of applause, please. Can I invite the panel up next? Thanks, Dominic. Have we got our 6 panelists? So we're going to move to a discussion on the how best to utilise, in essence, the power of data and AI to improve transport outcomes. I was quite interested in the opening speech by the Transport Minister on the focus, actually, on AI in particular. With us today, we have Alex Mindell, Sam Lee, Phil Clifton, we have Olga Gonzalez and Richard Barrington, and Anna Jordan. I'll get you all to introduce yourselves properly and your particular roles. The format of the discussion we're just about to move into is they're all going to give their personal perspectives for a couple of minutes. We're then going to open into a general discussion, so please, again, questions. If you have them, I'd like you, just to remind you, it's useful to state your name and your organisation, then straight into your question itself. We'll then close, actually, with the single most important point that you guys should take away from the conversation, either specific to the conversation or more broadly. But before we do that, I just thought I'd take the opportunity to give my own personal perspective on this as a way of introduction. I think the transport outcomes we're seeking to achieve remain largely consistent, safer, cleaner, more accessible, lower cost, more efficient, more resilient, seamlessly integrated transport systems. What I'm personally seeing is that how we're using the transport network is drastically changing, but the technology landscape in particular is changing very rapidly, and I think that is enabling us to think differently about how we achieve those transport outcomes. Now, day jobs in the highways domain, I think we're heading towards an instantaneous view of the road network. And just to put that into, I think that's enabled really by deep connected vehicle data, connected dash cams, the data exhaust that's coming from ADAS systems, and in the future, autonomous vehicles and the sensors and the data exhaust that will come from those. But just to kind of make that real a little bit, right now one of my challenges I'm looking at is how to harvest the massive volumes of harsh braking and harsh steering events that's happening across our network, taking those from connected vehicles and trying to take us away from a reactive approach to collisions across our network into an intelligence-led proactive approach, which I think hopefully can make a dent in all the collisions that are happening across our network, but also help us efficiently target what are quite scarce resources in making interventions across the road network, and hopefully reduce what in essence is the equivalent of 4 747s crashing every year on our road network, which is a massive challenge for us all. But I'll move to Alex, if you would like to give your personal perspective.
I'm Alex Mindell. I'm DFT's head of AI and autonomy, and I lead on the sector-wide adoption of AI in the transport sector. I've also been leading on DFT's forthcoming transport AI strategy, which the Minister mentioned earlier. I won't be talking about that today, though, because it is forthcoming. So we'll just be talking about AI in general. I think one of the first points I wanted to make was that AI has been around for a very long time. It's almost 70 years since the term AI was first coined. And we've seen a really big step change recently in the last few years with the increase in compute that we've seen, the increase in the amount of data that's been available, and also the changing architecture of a lot of AI, moving towards these transformers and generative AI. So I think we're seeing a real increase in the possibility of what we can do in order to improve transport for the user and reduce our environmental impact and some of the key outcomes that were mentioned earlier. I'll talk a bit about some of those opportunities that we're seeing and some of the many use cases that are out there in transport. So firstly, around optimization. So we've seen that in traffic management on our roads, in air traffic management, in the sky. We see it in maritime, how we move people through our ports and airports as we come to kind of disruption, but also from where we place our EV chargers. All of this relies on data, and we can use AI to drive more of this change and really improve transport for the user But it's also in places which we wouldn't necessarily expect. So things like contrails on our planes actually produce a great warming effect for climate change. And by using better optimization and understanding the flight routes, we can really reduce that environmental impact. The second area is around planning. So large infrastructure projects, how do we plan those better? How do we plan around events, roadworks, maintenance on our trains? And then also, as we heard earlier, automated vehicles, huge possibilities there. I won't go into that, but also we've got to think about things like autonomous construction plant, which has huge opportunities for productivity and efficiency gains and economic growth. And then something I'll call user-centric personalized offerings. So things like chatbots, using that for customer service and personalized journey planning. So when you go cycling, understanding whether the route will have, you know, separate cycle lanes, think about walking home at night and you want the streets to be lit. So thinking about your journey routes according to your own personal idea of how you want that journey to happen. And then we also have, obviously, predictive maintenance and automated inspection that is improving. And also on the security side, things like improved screenings, X-ray scanners, etc., all use AI. And then just quickly on some of the broad challenges that we have with AI, which is why it hasn't been necessarily integrated and had that impact yet, but has that potential. So one of the big ones is around data, so the access and the availability, and the fact that transport is very siloed in its data at the moment. So improving that data access, that open by default, which is in our transport data strategy, which was published in March 2023, is going to be really important. And it's also a root of a lot of the bias in AI, is that data. Second big kind of challenge is around outlier events, especially when these have safety critical functions. So most AI nowadays is trained on data. If you have outlier events, those black swan events, how do you predict that? How do you make sure that they will be safe? Thirdly, around black box, so understanding how an AI makes a decision so that you can have the explainability, you can have the redress, so that you can make a decision. Post that, the transparency and the equity issues that come along with that. And then lastly is the trust question, having that public acceptability and people accepting the decisions that AIs make. So that public trust, I see, is really being key. You can see that a lot already with automated vehicles and with the discussion earlier. Thanks.
Cool. Hi everybody. I'm Sam Lee. I'm the Senior Innovation Officer at TFGM. So welcome to Manchester, and please don't blame me for any of the trams. I can't do much about that, unfortunately, at the moment. But the role of the innovation team is very much to be the pathfinder for the organisation. So work with SME partners and kind of innovators to really look at what the opportunities coming along in the future and kind of help us as public sector employees and colleagues become a smarter customer. How do I know what to buy for my AI world if I don't know what the art of the possible is? So a lot of works are that cross-sectorial approach to work with players and internal colleagues to develop that capability and learning. I think Alex touched on a lot of stuff I was going to talk about, so I'm going to take a different angle to it. I think AI is kind of, it's the new buzzword as a whole. Everything is AI, but actually a lot of stuff we're doing right now, well, we have been doing, we're just branding it as AI as a whole. But I think there's a unique opportunity now, as Alex touched on, around how we have this big data proposition for all the smart city stuff, all the IoT sensors that we've gotten over the years, and how AI can help us identify and better understand behavior trends that historically we may not see. And it is then that aspect of what role does public sector have to play in this? Do we need to make sure data is set up in the right way, that it can be experimental with, it can be used in a safe and secure way to comply with privacy and kind of other things, or AI system that utilizes data? How do we make sure there's a cyber angle to it, which I'm sure Richard will talk a little bit more about. But I think for us is that applied innovation aspect of it. So we've worked on a number of projects, mainly look at computer vision technology to see how we can replace or make more efficient you know, how we understand movement in the city region. You know, you think 10 years ago, we're still sending people out with clipboards to do calling counts. Now we have cameras that can detect not just vehicles, but movements of vehicles, start identifying certain behaviors. Massive opportunity from a safety perspective, huge opportunity to rebalance the road in terms of improving services for vulnerable road users, such as active travel, walking, cycling, and the other modes that we're starting to see, like micromobility and cargo bikes. So we're in a really exciting kind of space at the moment with a lot of the rise in technologies. I think the key aspect that we need to just be mindful of is we end up doing a lot of this in silo, and we have a historical kind of precedent of doing that where everybody's just focusing on their own area. But with AI and data, there is a real opportunity to join up those dots that historically weren't. So how do we link travel to energy? You know, if everything is going to be electrified, where do we get the generation data for solar, you know, storage? You know, we're now seeing EV people charging differently, linking to social tariffs and whatever else. So it's a range of opportunities that we can explore now across sectors. Just make sure we leverage it. And to be honest, I would never say we're ahead of the curve. We're all learning at the moment. I think there's a key aspect of it. We need to share the failings, what's not working. So keen to hear from the rest of the panelists, you know, what their learnings are.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Phil Clifton. I'm Balfour Beatty's Managing Director for its highways business. So this is a construction slant on today's discussion. I think the construction sector is just waking up to data use and AI. We've typically had a culture of not invented here, and you know, we always do what we've done previously. But I think that that perception that we're behind the curve is starting to disappear, and I'm certainly starting to see that we're accelerating forward. We're a tier 1 contractor delivering for National Highways on their projects portfolio, and also operator and maintainer of Europe's busiest motorway, the M25. I normally get hissed and booed at that stage, so you're doing very well this afternoon. Thank you for that. Just picking out a few examples to try and bring this alive, looking at asset management and predictive maintenance. We're starting to look at live data coming from gullies and other watercourses. That's preventing flooding. That's, you know, we're eliminating aquaplaning, which is can be quite fatal. We're finding bridge joints and pavement defects before they become an issue. That makes sure that we don't damage vehicles. We find the potholes before they become the potholes. And that way we can be much more planned and efficient in what we do. That allows us to be significantly safer. That allows us to be less disruptive to the road user. But there is a lot of disruption on the road with the volume of work. On the M25, we do 18% of the road closures that are done nationally on a network that's only 6% of the whole network. So we do a huge amount of closures. We're spending roughly 200 million a year, every year for 30 years, on investments, planned and reactive maintenance. So we have a real difficulty in what work needs to go first, in what order. So trying to be efficient in our program is really important. We're using tools to optimize the program. The tools go through millions of iterations of the order of the work that needs to be done. And from that comes out with the most efficient way of doing it. And actually we're seeing roughly 20% saving on program. Allows us to do more roadworks. But that's allowing us to utilize our resources better, utilize less resources in an area where we're considerably resource constrained, and also minimizes the disruption. And hopefully, Anna, you're going to talk about the work that Alkira is doing on the M25 as well to be even more efficient. And finally, human form recognition. We've started to implement AI overlaid on live footage to detect where we find an interface between people and plant is probably the highway sector, one of the highway sector most serious issues. And we trialled this in the water sector, and after a week they came back and they said, well, the technology is faulty. The alarm's going off all the time. So we analysed the data and looked at the footage and found that actually only 1% was false. The other 99 was actually people becoming extremely close to plant. And actually the water sector had got a problem on its hands that it hadn't realised. So we're starting to utilise data, we're starting to utilise AI. We've got a long way to go. We are slightly behind the curve, but I think we're starting to utilise it in a way that not only helps the business, but also helps that ultimate end user. Olga.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Olga Gonzalez, and I represent Valorant. We're a data analytics company, or AI company, and what we do, we help road traffic authorities build trust or regain trust in data that is excuse me, available to them today. Not surprisingly, we know that infrastructure on roads, connected vehicles, social media, connected platforms and navigation apps, they produce a ton of data. But the challenge is, A, how you collect the data and how you compile it together, because we're talking about millions and millions of data points. The bigger challenge is that the data comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms. So phone call is a voice recording. Connected vehicle is a trajectory, it's GIS coordinates. Weather alerts, it's temperature. A loop is vehicle count. And camera footage is video. So how do you bring all this data that is different in nature together under one common denominator that actually you can analyze it? That's the challenge that we're facing. So to your point, Ryan, how do you prevent collisions and minimize casualties on the road? How do you transition from reactive road management into proactive road management? Do something preventatively to minimize impact, or in best case scenario, actually prevent the accident. That's what we actually do. Technology can help today to analyze data in real time, build risk models, and predict hours in advance of dangerous situations. In other words, it's perfect storm. If you know that historically at this spot, with this weather conditions, with this traffic density and this behavior of traffic, there were accidents. Historically, bingo. Probability is nearly 100%. You're going to have this situation repeating itself in the near future. So as a traffic authority, you can reduce speed, divert traffic, or actually close the road. So in simple terms, that's what we do. We enable road traffic authorities with information that helps them to make roads safer. And it's very, very interesting and satisfying for me to say that we're seeing from our deployments that have been running for 12 months that operators report road safety going up between 10 to 15%. So we're preventing road collisions, basically.
Hi, I'm Richard Barrington, Head of Smart Cities and Land Mobility for Angoka, a specialist cybersecurity company in this space. A couple of weeks ago, I was with a guy who can invent troops using AI. He can disguise entire battalions because everything is electronic and everything can be spoofed, and he can also inject aircraft into spaces that don't exist because the aircraft doesn't exist, but the enemy will see it. The challenge we have with AI is, how do we trust it? How do we know the provenance of the data that we are collating? And that comes in many different forms, as we've heard. There is no standard for watermarking an image. So how do we hold and secure data to evidential quality standards that means that when the incidents that will occur, we actually have an audit trail, we have the capability of understanding where the problem occurred, and so on. And the fundamental challenge, as you probably all saw in the last couple of weeks, is what's happened with the Mayor of London and the deep fake that has been going round of him saying some pretty unpleasant things. There is actually no law in this country at the moment to prevent that kind of thing from happening. So my biggest challenge here around this is how do we ensure that the data that is used to create the models that will create this brand new, brave new world that we all want to inhabit cannot be compromised in a way that will cause the kind of challenges that we're trying to prevent and restrict. So for me, provenance in all of this is critical and is key. We also need to know who has the data. And I know CCAV are already doing some work on this. This was something that we'd kicked off a few years ago from DCMS around when starting the rollout of 5G. It turned out that there wasn't a single asset in the country that was actually where it was supposed to be. Every lamppost was slightly not where it was supposed to be, which meant that when we were looking at putting up 5G antenna and everything else, we had all sorts of problems because the maps that we were using to substantiate all the data were out of sync with the reality and so on and so forth. So we have to go back to first principles in some of this space and really think about what it is we're trying to achieve and how do we know we can trust the information that is being collated to do it. Now, eventually, we will have so much data that we will spot anomalies. That's basic machine learning type technology. You understand and you can see where these things are happening. But we're at very early stages, almost ground zero of what the technology can do. So I feel really hard because I spend so much time telling people their baby's ugly in this world. I go to meet people who are trying to put an autonomous vehicle on the road who won't let me even look at it because, oh, no, we're safe and we're secure. We're not even going to ask that question because we have to be realistic about what it is we're trying to achieve. We know what the outcomes we're seeking to do, and then where does the data come from? Because, again, we don't own it all. The vehicle that's being generated by that vehicle doesn't belong to the local authority. Who does it belong to? How do we get access to it? How do we bring that together in a consistent, coherent fashion? How do we trust? And so we're sort of talking a lot more now, and I think several people have mentioned the same thing. This is about a systems of systems. This is about a whole systems approach. We can't look at the vehicle in isolation, no matter how great the bill will be as it goes through Parliament. We can't look at the ITS in isolation. We have to start thinking whole system, and that is quite hard. I mean, I'm getting on, and I'm struggling like mad to understand and grasp all of the things that need to come together to make this work. And that is going to be the real challenge, because we all want to make some money somewhere, or we want to make savings, and we want to create better efficiencies and so on. We've got to work out how does the model work where all of this comes together in a meaningful way. And that's where I'm kind of focused at the moment.
Well, I'll try. Take the mic and see if I can look at the future a little bit, maybe find some hope on the horizon. So hi everyone, my name's Anna. I'm CEO at Alcura Technologies. We're an SME based in Cambridge, and we build software to power what we call data-driven infrastructure. I think maybe I'll paint a bit of a vision that hopefully balances what we've heard so far. And there's been some really interesting topics brought up, so I'll try and be brief, make some time for discussion. But at Alcura, we really believe that this kind of better vision on the horizon, this better future, looks like an ability to fine-tune our infrastructure, is the phrase we're coining. Fine-tune our infrastructure better to be able to respond more dynamically to how people want to use it. And so there's two parts to that. There's fine-tuning the infrastructure itself. We've got the great Signals Fund. I can't see Darren, but the Signals Fund out at the moment, like more opportunities for the infrastructure to take ownership of how it operates itself, how you plan, how you maintain, and how you operate that physical entity. And then also how you can fine-tune the use of that infrastructure. And so we're seeing all these great use cases around dynamic responsive transit, or being able to communicate with in-vehicle vehicle-to-infrastructure communication, in-vehicle signaling, to be able to start to fine-tune how the road users themselves are interfacing with that space. But really, if we can think of that and agree that that concept of being able to fine-tune our infrastructure, it means that we can better connect communities, we can better connect businesses, better connect people, but it all needs to be done, as we say, in a cyber-secure fashion, in one that enables resilience in how those networks are built, and also has a mindful eye on sustainability and how we can achieve some of those all-important net zero targets. And so where we sit as a business is understanding that there's a huge opportunity for AI and the use of data to help us achieve that vision. And it's about how we can use AI, use machine learning to find those patterns in the data, to be able to find that margin in operating more effectively, or finding a better outcome for how we may prioritize investment over which signal is the one that's causing the biggest issue on the network. How can we use data to help us inform and enhance our decision making, and really kind of co-pilot how our cities can be fine-tuned, how our highways can be operated. So to give two brief examples, we've mentioned the M25. Alkira is doing some work with Connect Plus services at the moment around how we can better operate in this roadwork space, road space booking, and how you can find more opportunity to squeeze roadworks in. I mean, you can choose the KPI, but it can either be cost. If you can reduce the number of days that it takes to do a set of roadworks by extending the shifts to start earlier in the evening and stay on later, you can reduce cost, traffic management being the most expensive part of going out to do works on the network. If you think of safety, you can reduce the amount of hours that you've got that traffic management being undertaken. Or if you want to think about how many programs, how many refurbishments, how many new roads can we, new kind of maintenance can we do on the network, you get 7% extra road space. We can, yes, do more works, but actually that means that the roads are safer and operate more effectively for us as users. To take an urban example, we're doing work in transit. We've got a product called Alkira Bus, and focuses on how we can better make sure that the infrastructure isn't stopping bus systems and transit systems from running smoothly. So how can we use the data to understand where junctions may be causing undue delay on how a bus is travelling along a corridor, and then how can we fine-tune what that traffic signal may be, or maybe move some yellow lines which are actually in the way, a car parking space has got in the way. How can we identify where those challenges are to be able to then monitor and evaluate how our corridors can run more effectively? And so if there's one message, it's around right-sizing our infrastructure, how we can fine-tune and right-size our infrastructure using the data to better operate how we run our cities.
Does anybody want to pick up on any of the points that someone's made?
Maybe we'll look at Sam, because there's something that you said which I thought was really interesting, and it's kind of stealing my advice from the end, so I'm going to throw it in early now. But I think something that's very interesting from our perspective as being a technology provider in this space is the ecosystem is evolving really quickly. We've talked about how quickly AI is evolving, and like the use of data and the use of technology. And there's this question around buy versus build. There's a question around, as the infrastructure owner, as the Connect Plus services, or as the TFGM, do you need to become a technology company, or are you buying technology? And what does that mean for the skills? What does it mean for kind of this ecosystem and industry as a whole? Because we've been having some interesting discussions out today, but yeah, are you going to become a technology company, or are you?
I mean, I'll get a high evaluation if I become a technology company as a whole. It's a very difficult one, because it is almost a question of, is that the role of public sector, right, as a whole? I think we don't know the answer to that question at the moment. I think increasingly digital will have to play a role in every fabric and aspect of the things we do. Whether or not we have the workforce that's ready to adopt it, because some of the questions we didn't get a chance to discuss today, or hopefully we will, is around where does the decision get made with that AI-based system? Do we fully trust it? Do we take a step back? How do we, where do we sign that boundary? So I think in the initial instance, it's going to be very much trying a lot of things, and it's going to be buying, but a lot of times the challenge comes back to, we don't know what to buy, right? We can come out with, this is the outcome we want. So from a Greater Manchester perspective, you know, you've seen a lot of yellow buses and everything has, you know, B network is the focus as a whole. So the outcome would be, how do we improve the operation of that network based on the current civil infrastructure constraints, and for people to provide solutions for that. So maybe optimization of the routing for the buses and the trams, maybe in vehicle messaging to tell people where to go to avoid congestion that impact. So I think in that kind of, to answer the question, we need to go through a kind of a process of piloting, experimentation, and more importantly, just, I hate saying this all the time, people have this inherent fear about innovation and new things as being risky, but it's understanding what is the risk associated with it and creating a safe enough environment within public sector to have a go, because I think there is a mantra of public sector are not allowed to fail, but how are we going to learn if we don't try on some of this stuff? So does that kind of answer the question?
Can I just cue the audience? Are there any questions from the audience? We've got a few minutes. There's one here, one at the back.
Oh, sorry, John Davis, Via Plus. I suppose for me, and a very valid point was made at the start there, that AI has been around for 70 odd years. Data has been around even longer, but in our sector, it's only in relatively recently that we've actually started to recognize the value of data and learn how to use it properly. And there's been a hell of a lot of good projects, and we're finally gaining an understanding of the data. But now AI is on the hype cycle, and it's disrupting that significantly. So should we actually park AI and slow down a bit and focus on building on what we know about or learning about our data first before we then move into the AI space? You know, because AI at the moment, I'm a technologist and I'm a data person. I realize the value and the potential of AI, but I think at the moment, because it's on the hype cycle, it's just causing too much disruption to everything else.
Alex, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. I think we should really be using AI to drive better data. I think we can really utilize AI and the hype that is around AI at the moment in order to create the drive and the desire for businesses, for public sector, for all our organizations to see the value in the data. Because you see when data is collected well, when you use it clearly and then plug that into good AI machine learning models, that you can get really good outcomes from it at the end. And I think it's actually, rather than seeing AI as some kind of hindrance or blocker to creating better data, it should be really seen as something that can drive that forward. So I think I would completely twist that on its head.
I'd like to add to that. Well, hurricane modeling has been for how many decades around? That's one of the most complex models that we can talk about. Transportation sector is risk averse. That's probably my take why the sector is slow in adopting technology. But if you raise above slightly and take more strategic view on data actually can tell a lot, much more than what we're focusing. We're focusing on use cases, particular use cases. But if you take more strategic approach, you have a holistic overview of everything, of the entire sector. We just need to embrace it and start using it more. We should stop fearing it.
Yeah, I think.
But they should be controlled environments. Cybersecurity not to be undermined, not at all. No. Just to highlight.
So can I just, before Sam comes in, and it's something that Sam said about the fear of failure. We're working with one local authority at the moment, helping an autonomous shuttle navigate the city centre. We're going through 12 sets of traffic lights. There are 120 different pieces of technology within those traffic control systems. Because of the way that the business has been operated, because it's been outsourced, and because, and then it becomes break fix, there are 12 different suppliers' technologies, 120 different boxes within 12 sets of traffic lights. So we're looking at how do we secure that kind of environment. And trust me, it's hard. So that's the other problem, is because we are trying to use AI with a mix of new thinking and older technologies, and I think this is something that ITS should be really leading on, and I know there's investment coming in from government to help bring some of this technology into the 20th century would be nice. That's going to be a real challenge, because again, it's not just who owns the data, but can we get access to that data because of the age of those machines, who owns them, where does it sit in that whole mix? And with the risk aversion that does exist, it's how do we model and how do we simulate and how do we actually learn how to do that more efficiently?
Can I just come to this question here? We've got time for one more really quick, and then rapidly, final point around the panel.
Okay. Peter Richards, National Highways. I've heard an awful lot over many, many years about looking at equipment, measuring this, measuring that, when's it going to go wrong? But what we can't do, and what I've never heard from anybody, is an action plan as to what happens when problems are detected. And a simple example, been in the media so many times recently, smart motorway. A vehicle breaks down, it may be detected, but there is no action plan as to what is going to happen in the immediate few seconds after that detection is made. Yes, you can put a sign up warning it, but how many drivers have passed the sign already? We just don't have a means to deal with the problems that all this intelligence is picking up, as I see.
That's a resources issue. Is that what you're really talking about? Yeah. The people plan interface was an example of that.
Well, it's not really a resource issue. We're just collecting piles and piles of data, but there is no result as to what we do with it. As somebody said to me many, many years ago when I was a student, you can learn all these mathematical models of this, that, and the other, but it's no use to anybody unless you can predict something is going to happen with it.
Maybe you can answer that on the way round. I'm just conscious we want to close. So if I can, closing comments, perhaps answering the question at the same time. Alex.
Yeah, I'll pick up on the question slightly. So I think that's really around the human-machine interaction and what you do with the outcomes. So you want it to drive better decision-making, but you then have to make the decisions afterwards based on the AI, and you need a plan to work that out. I guess my closing remark would be around keeping this very outcome-focused, understanding that AI isn't a silver bullet for everything. It's not the solution to every problem, but it is a good solution and a good tool in your box to have. And in order to do that, we need good data availability, and good data access.
Yeah, I think my closing remarks are very similar, but it's quality of data and better understanding of what you have and what you can use it for legally. And I think just to add to an additional point, AI is slightly different to all the other technologies come along so far because it's so easy to access. Anybody can jump on a ChatGPT and use it as a bot, as a whole. So I get the cat's a little bit out the bag, and we're going to make sure the data is set up in the right way, that the outputs, is truthful, is trustworthy, and kind of what other outcomes that we're looking for as a whole. So upskilling as well.
I think for me, it's not necessarily about the data or AI. It's actually how we manage the change. Because unless we manage the change effectively, the use of data and AI is going to become useless, unfortunately. And I suppose with that, just to build, is creating the right culture through leadership, the people in this room, of actual positive adoption. And I don't think we're there yet.
Thanks, Phil.
I would like to answer that question on the resources. If data tells you that a particular sport is problematic, then what stops you from locating your response vehicles near that point? If you use data, you make your judgment, sound judgment based on data. And yes, you should apply your knowledge, expert knowledge, but if data tells you this is clearly a red spot for you, you should do something about it and be ahead of the curve. So yes, it is about quality of data. Yes, it's about embracing the change, and not trust technology. It's a very probably risky statement, but embrace technology, use it to your advantage.
Richard?
I want to use the cruise example to answer your question specifically. A car hit someone, pushed that person under an autonomous vehicle. The autonomous vehicle didn't know that person was there and kept trying to drive over them. An autonomous vehicle will never make that mistake again, because the software will be promulgated across all of the vehicles and change happens as a result of the incident that we can't predict. So for me, what I think this does is it gets it beholden on all of us in this room to focus on 0 deaths, 0 accidents, because we know in a world of autonomy that is doable. And how do we get there is we have to be able to trust. We have to understand what is occurring, and we have to work together, which I think is the critical thing. But it will happen, and we will get there.
Anna?
I guess mine's probably going to focus on, I think there's a huge opportunity at the moment for infrastructure owners, operators, to take more ownership of the digital real estate that they have, and where they can play a more active role in how that infrastructure gets used. So to actually somewhat answer this question as well, it's around national highways has this opportunity to, the dynamic placement of response vehicles. We're actually doing a pilot on that at the moment, but that concept is one answer to how you can take that data and make it useful. There's a lot to be said around communicating back to those in the vehicle for that same use case, but I think there's a huge opportunity for infrastructure owners and operators to be able to take more ownership of how they manage their real estate and how they can be more resilient and more dynamic to the different ways in which people are using that infrastructure. I think there is an AI hype curve, but I think that it's come at the same time as a real pressing need in how we've completely changed how we've used infrastructure. 2007, the first time that Google Maps was on a phone. 2020, everyone completely changes how they work. I think that there's this perfect storm of an AI hype curve, but actually a real need instead of a kind of nice to have of using data to be able to operate under these kind of pressing constraints. So seize the opportunity, infrastructure owners.
If you want an example of the hype curve, look at NVIDIA's share price at the moment. I guess my final point is, if you're very interested in the subject matter, join the ITS UK Data Forum. These are the kind of conversations that we have all the time. We're now closed. I just left to say thank you to our panel. We'll be back here at 1:45, is that right, Rukshan? For the fireside chat. So thank you very much.